Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Tailgate Talk. I'm your host, David, along with my brother, Nick. Nick, say hi to the people.
Howdy.
Well, guys, we're going to do another live reaction of the CFP rankings. Right now, ESPN's just going through with some of the high storylines, one of them being where will Clemson be ranked after beating Miami 40-10 on Saturday. Right now, we're 9 in the CFP, so where will we move up? That's on everyone's mind, as well as how they handle where Tennessee is going to drop. So that's about to get started off. We're going to try and figure out how to get you guys some graphics to help follow along. So bear with us, but we're going to try and give you our live, unadulterated reactions. Nick may cry. Who knows?
Unadulterated? Is that even a word?
Yeah, I don't know.
All
Unfiltered,
right.
whatever.
That would
I'm not good with the words. So here we
unadulterated.
go. And here we are. CFP rankings. Right now, nothing.
It's not even showing
Anything
up on
you
my
anything you're
phone.
interested in seeing, Nick, coming up?
I'm definitely interested to see how they handle Clemson for one thing, just because LSU didn't look good against Arkansas a couple weeks ago. They played a UAB team that, I mean, you could probably say Miami and UAB are kind of similar, but it's Power Five versus Group of Five. I'll be interested to see. So I just want to see if they put Clemson, if they follow the AP poll and jump Bama, or if they keep him behind. Also, kind of interested to see how the back end of the top 10 looks, just because a lot of teams back there lost. And who knows, maybe we get a South Carolina sighting, which would help us out a lot. So that's really what I'm interested in. Looks like David's pulling something
Yep.
up. He's not just
Sorry,
being dead
I'm
air.
trying to get everything set up here with my feed.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also interested to see, the top four struggled, I think, overall. Just not really blowing the teams away that they're expected to. Usually Clemson gets hit pretty hard with when they don't do that. So curious to see if there's any kind of discussion or repercussion. I don't expect any, but I mean, it's just you're getting down to the nitty gritty of it all.
Yeah.
So it's just, it's college football coming forward full circle.
I just thought of another thing I'm interested in seeing. I would be interested in seeing where they end up putting Notre Dame. It feels like Notre Dame has been kind of on a upward trajectory. I wonder how far they can get them up this week before they play USC.
They were ranked what 13th last week.
I believe it was 13.
Yeah. I can definitely see them either being, right on the fringe at like 11 or the 9-10 of the top 10. It really that seeing how that um their place compared to Tennessee, that's very interesting too.
Yeah, that is. I will. I don't know if Tennessee can stay in the top 10 after that. That was pretty brutal. And I never want to
Yep.
compliment South Carolina, but they played really well.
Hmm. So here we go. We're still waiting, still looking on, waiting to see what's going on. You've got the talking heads just, giving their takes so far. I think Nick and I both have it muted, so we have no idea what they're saying, but you know,
Nope.
uh, they're just right now recapping the storylines. Looks like they're talking about, Kentucky and Georgia, that being a relatively close game, but Georgia having 19 straight wins, conference play, except for the SEC championship game last year. Ohio State won. They've won every single game by double digits. Although I think that stat's a little bit misleading when you look at a couple of the games. They had some late defensive um, plays that went for touchdowns to help extend those leads. Michigan 11-0, fourth time in what 60 years. Meanwhile, TCU fourth time for the first time for the fourth time in their program history. So both those teams surviving off last second touchdowns, and then they're bringing up Tennessee getting boat raced by South Carolina. Um, just I don't think anyone expected that.
No, it was definitely a shock to us watching it. I don't understand how it happened. It doesn't make sense to me at all. So I wasn't very high on South Carolina at all, just because I'm a Clemson fan. But just it, how they put up they went from 1 week wanting to fire their offensive coordinator to putting up 63 points, and we know Tennessee doesn't have a defense, but I didn't think South Carolina had an offense to do that. But Spencer Rattler threw 6 touchdowns, 400 yards. Like, he did well, and they deserve to win that game.
Everyone's asking me if I'm nervous now about this week since South Carolina put up so many points.
Absolutely not.
Like they haven't they put up 3 points the last 4 years total that they played us.
Tigers by
Granted,
nine.
one of those times they didn't play the game, but they haven't scored a touchdown in over 2 years. Um, they've scored 3 points in the last 2 games. Haven't scored. They've scored one touchdown in the last 4 years against Clemson. I'm not too worried about it.
No, because
But I think
the
that
main difference.
definitely what Dabo and Clemson coming out saying, "Hey, you guys got to show up on Saturday. We need a big crowd." Absolutely, show up, get that turkey high off your get off your turkey high from the night before, and get ready to root on the Tigers as hard as you can on Saturday.
I'm also not worried for the stats you mentioned, but also we're at home, and according to this year, South Carolina's like 1-5 or something in day games. So they don't like the sunshine. So that's okay. I just love the fact that their fans are chanting, "We want Clemson." Like, okay, you're gonna get them.
Yeah, you get what you want. Let's find out. I mean, this is the week to talk smack
Yep.
for every team in the country. This is rivalry week. Nobody likes anybody.
No. I really wish that they'd stop. I know why they do it, but just stop dragging it out. Come on, let's talk about it.
Yeah, I'm ready to see the
Uh,
rankings. We're looking at Greg McElroy um right now talking about something we don't know. Like you said, we've got it on mute. We're so that way it doesn't go through the computers and with our audio, but it's pretty hysterical. Seeing them just talking, have no idea what they're saying.
it's
Kirk
just
Herbstreit in a different location. No hat this time. Can confirm he's not wearing the fedora.
can they just do the rankings already? I have a paper I need to write.
Poor Nikki.
Struggles of still being in college.
All right, here we go. Here's our first ones. Oh, it went away. So all right, what I thought I could do can't happen. So right now we've got 25 Louisville. That's another Clemson win right there.
There we go.
24 Cincinnati. 23 is Texas. UCF at 22, and then Oregon State at 21. Big news for the Tigers getting Louisville up to 25.
And that replaces NC State as a ranked win, so that's good.
Yeah. So you're keeping
NC State
probably
falling out.
yeah. So you've got Louisville, Florida State, and then UNC still left on the schedule because I think we still expect UNC to be in the top 25, just not where they were last week. So you've got a chance at the end of the season for Clemson to have 3 ranked wins. Um,
And
so
I think they do categorize them as at the time of playing. So that would be NC State, Wake Forest, Syracuse, and then North Carolina. But they also have to bring in the fact that Louisville is now ranked and Florida State is
I
continuing to
think
climb.
I
That
really
Florida
do
State
think that
win.
it's from what I've heard, it's they wipe it clean. It's a fresh slate because otherwise you're looking at a Notre Dame team who was ranked 5 at the time against Ohio State, giving Ohio State that rank that kudos of being
Top
a
five win.
top 5 team when they've got 3 losses this year in Notre Dame. Notre Dame turned it around, but definitely different than being a top 5 team. Next up, we've got Ole Miss dropping down to 20, Tulane at 19, go Green Wave. UCLA drops to 18, North Carolina at 17, and then Florida State at 16. I'd probably would have switched. I think I would have switched North Carolina, Florida State personally. I'd keep North Carolina having one less loss. Um, Florida State going through a gauntlet. At the end of the season, probably might get switched, depending on how North Carolina does against Clemson. But that's my personal opinion right now.
See, I disagree with you there. I think Florida State should be ranked above North Carolina just because when you look at North Carolina's losses, at the time it was to a reeling Notre Dame team and then at home to Georgia Tech. And then you look at Florida State's losses, it was at home to Clemson by 6 points, at the time number 14 NC State, and then versus a ranked Wake Forest team, all within 10 points. So I just feel like Florida State is the more complete team, but North Carolina has a better offense.
Mm-hmm. Notre Dame at 15, up from 18 last week. We were completely wrong thinking they were at 13. Utah at 4 drops to 14. Washington up to 13. Kansas State at 12, and then we've got Penn State staying at 11. So not a whole. That means that we've got Tennessee still in the top 10, which I think was expected. Notre Dame being down only at 15. That's interesting to me. They've got a big matchup this week against USC. I think I'd put Notre Dame way higher.
The problem is with Notre Dame, they still are going to have those losses to Marshall and Stanford at home on the resume. So that's why I kind of agree with keeping them below some of these other teams. I do think they're a very good team. Obviously, they kicked Clemson's ass, but if you have a loss to Marshall, and I hate saying this because it's making Clemson's loss to them look bad, but if you have a loss to Marshall at home and a loss to Stanford, it's not really a good look. So if they beat USC, they'll keep climbing.
Mm-hmm. Nick, your Utah Utes sticking around at 14. You rolled with them and they did, and it worked out so nicely for me.
Yeah, except we're still you're 2 behind me still, so that's fine.
Well, yeah, I messed up with the West Virginia pick. Should have
Who they even
stuck with USC.
Who did they play last week?
I don't know. Kansas State. Who knows? All right. Tennessee drops down to 10. That's probably about where I would have put them as well.
Yeah, I agree with that.
They got boat raced. They've got 2 losses. I think that pretty much absolutely puts to bed any hopes that they might have had of slipping in, which I think is
Oh, it most
expected by
definitely
everybody at
does.
this point. So now the question is,
I
who do they put at 9?
My bet's going to be Oregon. I think
Oregon?
Oregon will be at 9. I think, and it didn't almost knock them out. They are done.
Yeah.
No conference championship game. Their crowning achievement is win over a 2-loss Bama. They had a good year, but in the big games, they didn't show up against Georgia, and they didn't show up against South Carolina. You got to come to every game. That's why the regular season is still so important. They didn't show up 2 weeks. That's
Nick's
why they're at 10.
Nick's right. Oregon at 9. They still are in the hunt. Or actually, they've clinched a spot in the Pac-12 championship game, so they'll be playing USC there. That's a big data point for USC. If USC can win out against Notre Dame and Oregon, I think that puts them in a really good spot to be in the top 4 at the end of the year.
Actually, there is a way that Oregon does not make the Pac-12 championship game. If they lose this week to Oregon State, who just came in at, I think, at 21, Washington beats Washington State, Washington would go over Oregon.
You got
So
Clemson at 8, still keeping them behind Bama right now. I think that's just, they're looking at that Notre Dame losses, worse than the 2 last second play losses for Alabama. That's what it looks like to me for the committee.
Which, as long as they jump Bama, if Clemson wins out and they jump Bama with the conference championship, I won't have a problem with it. It is annoying because that means that we're also behind 2-loss LSU still. That didn't look good against Arkansas. It's It's that SEC bias coming in my opinion. I feel like Clemson should be ranked ahead of Alabama, but
I agree.
that's just my opinion. I think it'll probably go Bama then LSU at this point. So Bama will probably be at 7, LSU at 6, USC
Hmm.
5, and then the rest of the top 4 remaining unchanged.
Yep. I think you're probably right with what's going on with the playoff committee. So now we're just eagerly waiting to see what comes up. Right now we've got on the screen Tennessee at 10, Oregon at 9, and Clemson at 8 for those watching at home. Upset that we don't have graphics. Sorry, I tried to take a screenshot and ESPN knew what I was trying to do and made the screen black.
Real.
Alabama at 7, expected. And I agree with you, Nick. I mean, you're looking at Clemson, they're behind two teams with 2 losses, and it's especially when you're looking at Alabama not having a chance to win a um conference championship. I think that I get it that part of what they're saying is that they don't look ahead, but at the same time you got to look at that and say, look, you don't have a chance versus Clemson that does. I mean, if Clemson loses, they'll drop behind, but my thought is that if you've got a chance to win the conference championship, you should be out ahead of those teams that can.
Yeah. So obviously at this point, the path to the CFP for Clemson is kind of obvious. They have to win out, beat South Carolina, beat North Carolina. That should be enough to vault Alabama in front of them. That's just my opinion. LSU. So as a Clemson fan, you're going to want LSU to lose in the SEC championship game to Georgia. Make sure the committee doesn't have a chance to put in a 2-loss team over Clemson. You're going to want USC to preferably lose this week to Notre Dame, make that loss look a little better. That might even be enough if we beat South Carolina and USC loses to Notre Dame. That might be enough to kind of ease the committee's feelings on that Notre Dame loss. And then you're going to want probably Ohio State to blow out Michigan this week. Just leave no doubt. And you're going to want TCU to lose in the Pac-12 championship game, most likely to Kansas State at this point. I don't know if Texas has a shot to get into the Big 12 championship game. I'm checking that right now. Either way, you're going to need TCU or Kansas State or Texas to beat
Or they
TCU.
do play Iowa State this week, although Iowa State is like
They're
last
not
in the
losing
Big
to Iowa State.
12. But
They, they
Iowa State did beat Iowa, I think, and Iowa's
It's not
right now
saying
the
much.
the front runner for the Big Ten West. So, what does that tell you about the Big 12 versus the Big Ten? That's something I think that's a little bit underrated here. How poor the Big Ten West has been this year.
If Texas beats Baylor and Kansas State loses to Kansas, then that puts the Longhorns in the Big 12 championship.
Mhm. Now we're revealing the top 6. So at number 1, they've got Georgia. No surprise there. Move on to the next one, shall we?
Right?
It's just
It's going to
it's
be
kind of
Georgia,
rinse and
Ohio.
repeat there.
I'm going to call my shot. Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, TCU, USC, LSU. Calling it. I mean, it's obvious at this point. That's what it should
Yeah.
be.
They've got Ohio State at 2. So Nick's right now 2 for 2 on his prediction. I agree with you completely. I think that's exactly what the top 6 is going to be. Um, I I think that 6, 7, and 8, I would put a bit of jumbling around for a couple of reasons that we'll get into after we see these rankings. Michigan at 3, so you've got 2 versus 3 this week at noon. So I'm sure Nick and I will be checking our phones uh as much as we can during the game, but obviously we'll be at the Clemson game against South Carolina. TCU at 4. TCU, your path is simple. Just win out. Because even you win out, I think you're good. You'll probably slated at that 3 spot and play the winner of the Ohio State Michigan game. But that's all you got to do. They're keeping LSU at 5. I don't agree with that at all. I
That
think that you should have USC, which they put at 6 at 5.
what
I
is
don't like that at all. I think that this is that's upsetting to me. I don't agree with that.
they're gonna the rewarding. So basically, what that says to me is that they're rewarding LSU for beating Alabama. That's really
Hmm.
that's what they're rewarding them for, and that's probably why Bama's ahead of Clemson still is because the committee's just valuing Alabama more than Clemson at this point. That that to me that was simple. Put USC in ahead. That was really. I agree. That is annoying. I don't agree with that one. That so all right. Looking at the ranks, looking at the top 10 as a whole, I agree that the 6, 7, 8 that should be rearranged. And as I just said, the top I don't agree with that ranking. So my top 5 coming in: Georgia, undisputed best team in the country. TCU, I've had them at 2 for a while because I'm rewarding them. They've been undefeated. They've played quality opponents more than I think Ohio State, Michigan have. It's ticky tacky because Ohio State, Michigan, whoever wins, I'm going to vault them over TCU just because that would be the best win in the country, in my opinion. Um, and then USCF 5. I mean, they beat a very good UCLA team last Saturday, and I think that they should be rewarded for that. So it's kind of I would go to bat for the Trojans right now. I feel like they should be number 5 over LSU.
I agree. Georgia at 1's easy. Ohio State, I think at 2 is pretty easy to do as well. I like TCU over Michigan. I just, Michigan, especially now that Blake Corum's a little bit hobbled, he's still going to play. It sounds like, but you just watch Michigan and it's one dimensional. I think TCU is just a little bit more explosive on offense. And so I'll put them ahead of Michigan because of that. And then I have USC at 5 as well. I screwed up putting should have put up a little bit higher in the graphic, but oh well. All right, Nick, your 6 to 10.
Yeah, so I mean, I got LSU, Clemson, Bama, Tennessee, and Oregon. I feel like the main problem I have with these rankings is that a 2-loss Alabama is ahead of a 1-loss Clemson. I get it that Clemson looked horrible in that loss, but Alabama looked horrible against Texas A&M, and look how bad they've been. Like they should have lost to Texas A&M if Jimbo didn't call that a play that was short of the end zone on a play you need a touchdown on. Alabama would have 3 losses, and they could have lost to Texas. I don't think Alabama is what everyone thinks they are. I think everyone wants to claim that the only reason why Clemson's ranked highest is the name bias. Look at Alabama. That is name bias. They have not been better than, in my opinion, they have not been better than Clemson this year. And then you get to Tennessee at 9, tough loss. Really, no other way to say it. That was horrible for them. And prayers up to Hendon Hooker and recovery from his ACL injury. Never want to see a guy go down like that. And then I got Oregon. They just won't go away. Obviously, I don't think their playoff shots are done, but they can still play spoiler to USC and get that New Year's Six bowl for for the Pac-12. But they do have to fend off. Actually, no, I think they have it over Utah and UCLA just because of the head-to-head matchup. So I think Oregon would secure
Pretty
the
sure they're
Pac-12.
clinched.
No, well, I'm talking about for the New Year's Six bowl because they are not clinched into the Big 12 into the I don't know, I keep saying Big 12, the Pac-12 championship game because I forgot what team I just said. Washington could still get that, so I think they do have to fend Washington off.
Yeah. I So on for me, I think it's simple. Clemson has 1 loss. Um, and if you're gonna look at Tennessee's 1 loss against South Carolina, I think that's worse than Clemson's 1 loss against Notre Dame, the way Notre Dame's playing. All the other teams from 7 through 10 have 2 losses. So I think that's my penalty for losing multiple games is that you're gonna have to fight to get above a team that's only lost once, even if it is a bad loss. I mean, Alabama's 2 plays away from being having 4 losses. LSU has not looked as dominant in some games as other, and they have a loss to Florida State that Clemson beat handedly. Tennessee lost to South Carolina. Clemson's going to play South Carolina this week. There's a comparative one. So for that reason, I'm putting Clemson up at 6. Tennessee beat LSU and Alabama. They're ahead of LSU and Alabama in my rankings. For that, even though They had a really bad loss to South Carolina. I'm not going to completely forget head to head for that reason. LSU beat Alabama, so they get to go ahead of Alabama. And then I've got Oregon at 10. Um, again, so I want to put Oregon higher at like 7 because they've got a chance still to uh, win their conference. But I just, with the two losses, comparing them, they had a really, really bad loss to um, Georgia to start the year, and then their loss to Washington. I think that was a big misstep there. So I'll put them at 10 for this week.
All right, and then going into my 11 to 15, Washington stuck around. They have a couple losses, but they went into Eugene and beat Oregon. They keep climbing. So the Huskies, like I said earlier, they still have a shot at the Pac-12. Don't rule them out. Notre Dame, I feel like part of it's wishful thinking because I know that it would make Clemson look better, but I do think that Notre Dame is one of the most improved teams when you look at the start of the year to now. So I feel like Notre Dame kind of gets that bump over a team like Penn. I am just so anti-Penn State right now. I do not think they're good at all. I think that the Big Ten has been very underperforming outside of Ohio State and Michigan. I feel like Penn State has gotten the ability to beaten up on those teams, and that's why they're undefeated. So I value teams like Kansas State and Utah over Penn State for those reasons. And I wanted to really show some love to Florida State. I feel like they are up there with Notre Dame for teams that have improved from the beginning of the year to end of the year. And even at the beginning of the year, they beat LSU. So they have according to the committee, one of the best wins of the season right now. So I think Florida State has some serious consideration for top 15, top 10 team. They are very good. And it pains me to say that because they're a rival of Clemson, but I got to give them their flowers. They turned it around after their season could have been over. They could have went in a hole and died after losing 3 in a row. They've come back. I believe they're 8-3 now. So they've won however many in a row. They keep getting better. Norvell has them in the right direction. I think Florida State, I don't want to say they're back just yet because they still have to beat the top teams in the ACC to kind of say, hey, we're back to being the cream of the crop, but they are on their way. And Clemson, Wake Forest, NC State, look out. They're coming. North Carolina, I don't want to say Miami because Miami sucks, but watch out.
So I've got I honestly UNC Florida State, I think right there for me. I've got Florida State in my rankings at like 16. You could go either way, but North Carolina only has 2 losses, Florida State has 3. So I'll give North Carolina at this moment the tiebreaker, and then uh, if UNC loses to NC State or Clemson, then that gives me the more comparable way to flip them the other way. But I agree with you, Nick. Florida State's been phenomenal after rebounding after those 3 straight losses. So they're definitely on the way back. They just got to figure out how to get back
Got to
to
win the big ones.
competing and keeping games close and making the right situational decision against the top teams in the ACC. I've got Washington at 11, so them and Oregon fighting for that second place right now in the Pac-12. So put them right next to each other. Let them duke it out, however they can. Um, Penn State, I agree. I haven't been high on Penn State. I'm keeping them at 12, just because I think that their 2 losses are to the 2 of the best teams in the country in Michigan and Ohio State. So it's hard to kind of knock them too much from that. Um, and you when you compare it to a Notre Dame and a Kansas State who have 3 losses, um, that's kind of where my edge goes there. But I agree, Notre Dame rebounded phenomenally from their their rough start. Came out walloped UNC. They walloped Clemson. Hopefully they'll keep trending that way. I think for family reasons, I'm gonna have to root for USC. but I'll acknowledge that if Notre Dame wins that game, then that helps Clemson out a lot. So I'll just throw that out there. I want to be able to go to Christmas in a couple of weeks, and then I've got Kansas State right now. They're the leader for the Big 12 to try and tackle TCU. So we'll see how that goes. But TCU is in a good spot right now.
I feel like you'd be able to say, you know what, I need USC to lose just for Clemson. It's nothing personal, just for my team. I need it to happen. I feel like you could say that.
I just want to go to Christmas. So I think that's all we've got for today. Let us know what you think of the committee's rankings. Let us know what you think of our rankings. But as always, guys, go Tigers.
Go Tigers.